Hey, Nikki, I forgot you have hosts. So must have chin there. What's up, Larry?
And hello.
How you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Where'd you go?
Oh, am I not here?
No, I think I did it somewhere here.
Wendy was gonna come from um Wendy Krieger was gonna come, but her daughter got sick, ironically, she said. So Woodstock Nursery School won't make it, but she wants
Oh
to,
dear. Okay.
yeah, she wants to participate another time. She just
Yeah, I think I think her daughter's been sick for a little while because I talked to Mika 3 or 4 days ago and her daughter was still was sick at the time.
Yeah, so she just spiked to 102 fever.
Oh geez, that's
Yeah.
so scary, kids.
Yeah.
So who do we expect here? Don't know.
A good amount of folks. Everyone on that invite is supposed to come,
Yeah.
which is a ton of people. So that should be awesome.
Are you where are you at the store?
Oh no, I wish it looked like this. This is my apartment in New York in the Upper West Side.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's my, New York, everything's, I do have a downstairs, but it's all
Yeah.
tight.
Great.
Yep. Doing some work, paying the bills.
Yeah. That's good to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nikki's doing the.
Yeah.
Hi, Nikki.
Hi, Nikki.
Hi, guys.
Hi. It's- You got the link to that draft of the survey handy?
Don't have a link. I have the live link. Yeah, I don't have, I have a PDF to go through that I can send people also. What's this? Sorry, 1 second. TZX.
I want it known that this is non-alcoholic beer.
All right, it's 8 o'clock. Got a couple people. Just give a couple more minutes. See who else is going to join in.
Yeah, I know Julia said she was going to join us. It's Ruth. Mika's going to join, right?
I think so.
Well, Hi, Marianne Ketzier. How are you?
I am well, and you?
I'm fine. Haven't seen you in a long time.
I know, I've been hiding. Fully retired now. Grandparenting like crazy.
Yeah, we're doing that too. We got
Yeah.
8 of them and 6. We take care of 6 of them 3 days a week.
Oh, good for you. I'm
Not-
not that invested.
Not at the same time, by the way.
Yeah. Okay. I have 6 and another one coming, but
Wow.
I don't take care of them 3 days a week.
Well, they're all local. The 6 out of 8
That's
are.
nice.
Yeah, Ben's kids are down in Arlington, Mass. So
Not too far.
we're really interested in childcare.
Hi, Marion. Nice to see you.
Hi,
Yeah,
Been a
nice
long
to see you
time.
too.
Hi,
Yeah,
Mary.
it is.
Has been.
Hey. It's Old Home Week.
All right, just give folks a couple more minutes. Looks like a lot of people are joining up.
hi, Mika.
Hi there. Just full transparency, I have not eaten yet. And so I am going to turn my camera off. I am here, I am watching. I'm also just gonna chow a couple tacos real quick.
Let us watch you eat.
All right. Give it, I think we're missing just a couple people. Give it 2 more minutes and then we'll start up.
If I may be so bold, perhaps you've already done this, but if you haven't, I wonder if people would be interested in maybe just throwing into the chat who here is involved, like what your involvement is with childcare. If you have kids and you're looking for care, or if you happen to be involved with the childcare facility, or just you're just all around interested, I'd be very curious to know what people's connection is.
Right, and so, and Todd is the chairman of the child care work group, and I'm Larry, and that was Megan. We're 3 of the 4 that are on that work group now, and we obviously want to expand.
Julie's running a little late to bedtime. All right, well, hi, everybody. I think we should get started. Since 8:06, we're already starting a little late. So I'd like to call the meeting to order and welcome everybody to one of our introductory meetings. This is great to have so many people reach out to us through Larry and Mika and whatnot, and to me, and we're really excited to hear everyone's thoughts. I have a couple of things to talk about and share with you. It's a very inclusive meeting. Don't worry about, we want to hear everyone's voice. We want to hear everyone's opinions and just have a nice conversation so we can gather information. And the goal is to really find actionable items that we can do in the short and immediate term to help solve the crisis in Woodstock and elsewhere. And, you know, we have spoke a lot with folks in town. The reason we say Woodstock often is because if we were to recommend to the EDC anything for grant or funding or whatnot, it would be from Woodstock taxpayers and have to be structured in a way that benefits Woodstock folks directly. So I know that always sounds a little weird because we want to help everyone everywhere. And maybe we can in a certain way as a byproduct, but just keep in mind that that's where we come from, a subgroup of the EDC. So with that, I'd like to start the meeting off and welcome everyone to perhaps introduce themselves if they like and say a little blurb. I'll start with myself, easy enough. My name is Todd Ullman. I live in Woodstock for a little under 3 years. My family and I are the ones you probably heard about that recently purchased the Tazewell Country Store. On the Economic Development Commission. I'm also on the school board and also have a place in Queechee where I enjoy golf and swimming and general fun with my children who are 10 and 7 and attend Woodstock Elementary School. Larry, would you like to say a little bit about yourself and then pass it along?
Sure. I'm Larry Niles. I've been in Woodstock for 53 years. And brought up 2 children here. I now have 6 grandchildren who are either in Woodstock or in surrounding areas, and the 6 of them are, the oldest is 6. So childcare is obviously, as grandparents, on our minds. But I got interested in this because I've been on the EDC for several years, and this issue keeps popping up. And I see it as a direct relationship. There's a direct relationship between child care capacity and economic development in Woodstock. There's a very direct relationship. So it's of interest to me that way as well.
Todd, you're muted.
Yeah, would you like to introduce yourself, Mika? There you go.
Sure, yeah. My name is Mika Seeley. I've lived in the Woodstock, Pomfret area, or started in Pomfret, moved to Woodstock, but I've lived here since 2009. I have 2 children who are, my youngest is actually on her way to college soon. So I'm sort of out of this group time-wise, but I'm very interested in it. I feel very strongly about childcare. I have been a working mother for most of my life, and I just feel very strongly about the cause.
Great. Laura, would you like to say something about yourself, perhaps?
Sure. Thanks, Todd. And thanks you guys for having this meeting and giving us the opportunity. My name is Laura. I know about half of you from meetings and such. I live in Woodstock with my husband and my daughter. I'm on the planning commission here. But sometimes I go to EDC meetings for fun and entertainment. My daughter was really lucky enough to be accepted into the new Bridgewater daycare that opened in June, which has, I believe, 8 children. So it's serving 8 families, most of which are in Woodstock. And we were on wait lists, as a lot of people have been, for almost 2 years. Even before we moved to the area, we were on wait lists. And it was a very big struggle. I had to step away from full-time work for an extra year to be able to care for her. And I'm really grateful that we're in Bridgewater. And Ruth is amazing, as are many of the daycare directors here. And I really want to participate to find ways to support them if that is an option, because I know a lot of them have infrastructure projects and staffing needs that we could all support. Thanks.
Thank you, Laura. How about Marion? Would you like to introduce yourself? You don't have to, but if you'd like to.
Just briefly, I've been in Woodstock for a while, ran a bike shop with my husband for a lot of years. And now I have, the kids are all grown and grandkids are coming, and 2 daughters are in the area, one who's pregnant and one who has 5 and a 3-year-old. And childcare is the tough nut. Similar to you, Laura, my pregnant daughter she's on wait lists too, and is hopeful for September 2023. So it's hard to, families find it very hard not to have 2 incomes, or not to be, or to have an income that's only supporting a child. Childcare situation.
Thank you, Marion. Crystal, how about you?
Oh, sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having this meeting. My name's Crystal. I live in South Woodstock with my wife, Katrina, and our daughter. We moved up here full time when my daughter was about 10 months old. She's now 3 and a few months. And for the entirety of that time, we've been searching for childcare. We've, similar story to those that have already been told. We've been on several wait lists for upwards of 1.5 years. And Ella is thankfully enrolled at Wes for pre-K that's starting in a couple of weeks. And we're very, very thankful. But in the meantime, we've also had to step away. My wife had to step away from work. And so I'm really interested in hearing what ideas people have and what resources we can throw at this, because I do see this as a major issue going forward for Woodstock. I don't know how we continue to attract young families if we don't have the infrastructure to, educate and provide safe environments for our kids.
All right, thanks, Crystal. Thank you. Ruth, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello. I'm Ruth Brisson. I'm the Executive Director at Woodstock Christian Childcare, which is a center right in the heart of town. The center has been there for 28 years and more than 28, and I've been the director for 4 of those years. So I'm happy to talk with everyone. I hear the stories every day. I get the calls every day of people needing to be on our wait lists, which sometimes kids can be on for up to 2 years. So I understand the need, and I'm hoping that there can be some collaborative efforts to work on what I see as a short-term and long-term problem for the area.
Thank you, Ruth. That's it's nice to have you. Thank you. I have some folks that don't have video, but I'm gonna try going through and we'll see if they're interested in introducing themselves. How about Julia Cook? Julia, you're on the-
Hi, sorry.
Hi.
My toddler likes to hear us pacing around at night.
Huh.
So I'm just pacing in her room. Hi, I'm Julia Cook. I think I know a lot of the people, moms, especially on this call, and I know Larry. I was on the EDC for a couple of years before I think you were there, Todd, and I stepped away mostly, honestly, because I had work and a kid and not enough childcare. So definitely impact the ability of younger people in town to participate in town governance. So it becomes a chicken and the egg type situation. We are very lucky to have found an amazing nanny for our 3 children now. And Robinson is at my eldest son, who's 3 now, is at Rainbow. I emailed, I think when I was 6 months pregnant, to get on a wait list for when he was 1.5 years old. So clearly that kind of 2 years in advance planning is not something that everyone can logistically do, given mobile work situations and all that. And I, like everyone else, am interested to hear what the EDC has been thinking about how to possibly contribute to this issue.
Thank you, Julia. Pete, would you like to introduce yourself? Pete, there we go. Hey, Pete.
Yeah, sorry, trying to get the camera on here.
No
Hi,
problem.
I'm Pete Landis. Grew up in Harlan, Vermont, and recently moved back to the area in May. We're renting in Queechee, and similar to the other stories, looking for any sort of daycare. We have 2 boys under 5. Son Lucas is 4.5, and my other son Caleb just turned 1. And we were lucky to get Caleb in the Bridgewater daycare, but was not able to get Lucas into any programs. So we found just a college student nanny for the 2 boys for the summer. And Lucas will be starting at the Waldorf school at the end of the month. And we're using their sort of afternoon care program to sort of look after him till the end of the day. But yeah, when we were looking to move back to the area, it was a very big concern that we wouldn't be able to find childcare at all. So we moved up here, even though we didn't really have any hope of finding childcare. We're on every single wait list. So yeah, it's definitely a deterrent for people coming to the area. So definitely interested in ways that we can improve that.
Great, thanks, Pete. Is it Caroline or Carolyn Olson? Hi.
Hey there. So I'm Caroline Olson. I have 2 little ones, Wesley, who's 3 and going to Woodstock Elementary in the fall, and then Quinn, who's 1, and I'm pregnant with our 3rd, due in December. I've reached out to Ruth a lot, so we haven't met face to face, but she said the earliest we could get into her childcare center was fall. of next year potentially, and that's not even guaranteed. We're lucky and have a caregiver at home, but we prefer to have our children in a childcare setting. And we actually have a childcare, our caregiver at home actually has the qualifications to be a director of a childcare facility. We've searched for places. I've found potential funding through a loan through VCLF, but finding a place to put a childcare center in Woodstock and getting the funding to do so has been difficult, especially on top of having our own business. So it's a little bit of a challenging task, but we have a person that would love to run a center if we can find the funding to do so and the infrastructure to do so.
Good, very good. All right. Bianca? Thank you, Carolyn.
Hey everyone, I'm going to be video off just because I might have to pop out. I have a 3-month-old who's not quite settling. Similar to a lot of the other moms, I moved to the area over 2 years ago. I have a son who's 2.5, Don, and a daughter, Mila, who's, yeah, like I said, 3 months old. We are incredibly lucky to have care in our home. We have a caregiver, Heather, who comes from Reading. However, similar to Carolyn, we would love to have Dawn exposed to more kids and in a daycare setting, which right now seems impossible. And yeah, I would love to join the committee just to help think through solutions. I'm very much, I guess I always get nervous because I care a lot about the safety of our kids. So ensuring that we find quality resources and that the infrastructure is thought through rather than just kind of throwing money at the solution, if you will. So that's part of the reason I'm here. I'd love to discuss those things, but thank you and apologies, my video is off.
No problem, Bianca. Thank you. How about Stephanie? Are you there, Stephanie?
I am. I'm Stephanie. I have been in the area, I don't know, about 6 years. My daughter is at Rainbow. My son is home with us for medical reasons at the moment. I am joining because I'd like to see more options. I'm in the same boat as everyone else. I applied for daycare when I was, I don't know, 4 months pregnant with Everly, and it took a long time to find anywhere. And I think I'm still on the wait list at 5 or 6 places in the Upper Valley. So it's kind of ridiculous that people in the area just can't find anything, and it's frustrating. I'm really grateful for what we have, and I think we should try to figure out a way to incentivize people wanting to come in the daycare situation. I know it's tough, it's long hours, or have 10 kids. We have to find a better way to try and get some people to want to either have more options in the area for like working as a teacher, like maybe some programs in the high school to see if kids want to go and get their degrees at night and have like a 3-year agreement where they have to work for one of the daycares, and that keeps people around. So I mean, start younger versus and maybe the older population.
Okay. Thank you, Stephanie. I'm really happy for this turnout, by the way. Just going to say that again. It's great to have everybody here. We're almost done with going through the intros. Megan, would you like to say hi? Are you there?
Yep. Hi. We've been in the area for about 3-ish years, and we have a 9-month-old son. Similar story. We started getting on wait lists when I was 6 months pregnant, and still on most of those wait lists. We looked at places as far as Burlington, and we're on some wait lists there. We were fortunate that we could stagger our leaves because we didn't have any options for care. No nannies. We considered getting an au pair. That seemed to be the most hopeful option at the time. We don't have family in the area too, so we couldn't rely on grandparents, and we were able to stagger our leave to make it as long as possible. And we were lucky enough to get into Bridgewater, I think the last week of my husband's leave.
Wow.
And I think being a first-time parent or just being a parent in general is stressful enough and you don't even think that this is something you're going to have to worry about. I think it's hard enough to drop your kid off for the first time at daycare, and we just didn't even consider that trying to find care would be so challenging and so stressful. So eager to help and find more solutions.
Great. Thank you, Megan. And is it Mila?
Yep. Hi, this is Mila. We moved to the area at the end of 2020. And then when we found out I was pregnant, right when we moved here, I think 6 or 7 weeks, I went on several wait lists and still haven't heard back from any of those. Our son is about to turn 1 year old, and we're lucky enough to have a local neighbor who watches him, but it's 4 days and the days are short. So it's certainly posed a lot of challenges for both my husband and I, to keep our regular work schedules, and really excited to get involved and help in any way, because this is a really big, issue for all of us. And we'd love to have a second, but the discussion about that can't even begin until we feel a little bit more comfort with what's going to happen for childcare going forward.
Great. Thank you, Mila. This is a lot of great info. I think we all touched on similar themes. If I can just go and just say a couple, we want to find qualified providers. So I didn't hear anyone, saying that they were looking for something that was sort of off book. We want a safe environment for our children, with qualified providers. That can mean many things, but I think we all have the gist of that. A well thought out plan was something that someone said, and that's a great point, because nothing we can put forward to possibly ever get any funding or otherwise will happen in a positive way without a well thought out plan. So that's why we wanted to really engage the community, and all of you it's just fantastic, because Larry and Mika and I, we're not experts at this. We need you to tell us, and we're here to help in any way we can and work together. And then something else we touched on, I think that's important, is cost friendly. Cost friendly means something different to everybody. And I think that some people can afford things that, don't even blink an eye, and other people might not put a meal on the table 1 night a week or 3 nights a week to get something done, to be able to go to their regular job and have their child taken care of in the way we described. So these are all things that I think are broad issues that are intrinsically linked, because you need to have all of them to be successful, in my opinion. I think that I'd love Larry to talk a little bit about some of the thoughts we had for the community, to be able to try to find out how many folks have what children and are waiting, so we can sort of get a metric in a Woodstock itself, the surrounding community as well, so that we don't have to rely on some state data or something larger like that. Really just being able to reach out to the community and try to get these numbers, because with those numbers, I think we all believe that we then can start to formulate a plan. And without those numbers, it'd be very difficult to try to figure out what we need to build if we don't know how many blocks we have to fill. So Larry, do you want to talk about what we have going on and what we thought about before we had this great group join us to discuss?
I guess I should say yes to that. Well, basically, our thought is, for us to get anywhere, we've got to need to provide the EDC and any other decision makers with as much specificity as we can. And so basically, Todd and I are working through a draft of a survey that we'll advertise, hopefully, and market as well as we can. Norwich went through somewhat a similar kind of thing, so we have a little leg up on structure. But so I think what we want to do is document basically what each one. I wrote down everything each one of you said, and it sounds like everybody had trouble finding a slot for childcare. So we want to do is get your input on that, but we also want to solicit input from people who won't attend or don't attend meetings. So we put together a draft survey, which we're going to send that out, Todd, for comment. Is that?
Yeah, I can share it quickly also, just to give you a rough idea. I won't go through the whole thing, but we'll send it out for comment, and all of you are more than welcome to give any and all feedback. Let me just show you what this looks like in general, so you have an idea.
And we're trying to keep it really simple, so it encourages people to fill it out.
So you see, we thought about a survey here. Can everyone see that on your screen? Okay. Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
we can see it.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
So what are we trying to find out? And these are things that are important, so we can have data to articulate this micro community and what the exact needs might be. Because I think many folks are aware, but I think, Ruth, you can definitely speak to it for sure, amongst others, but there's things like the amount of square footage per child in a room, interior, there's amount of square footage of exterior play, there's required parking, and I'm sure Stephanie, Caroline rather, knows about that and trying to find a location. So there's, each child matters in a literal square footage sense when trying to solve the issue. So this is why we want to drill down on this. So first of all, asking folks if they live in Woodstock, we still want the information, but if they don't, it wouldn't pertain to exactly the sizing we might need necessarily. We're going from birth to 2 and 3 to 6 because of pre-K. I also spoken to Sherry Souza about pre-K, and we'll share some thoughts on that. So we're saying, a couple questions about that, and then some more questions for 3 to 6, similar. Do you have children? Are you anticipating children? How many people are on the waiting list? This sort of thing. And again, we'll send this to you, so I'm just breezing through it. Are you satisfied? So we think most people probably say no, but maybe someone is, and they can tell us why. And then do you want to answer some questions? So to Larry's point, we wanted to make this, whatever it ends up being, this is an Uber draft. We wanted to have them have an out and then also be able to drill in. So assuming they drill in, what about costs? What do you think about costs? Do you have alternate plans? Do you have a nanny or so on and so forth, perhaps, that's available to you? This is where the economic development comes in, because to approach the EDC, we have to really show how it affects economic development. I believe it's very obvious. I think Larry might too, but some people might not. So the more data and the thoughts and that we can put toward that will just bolster that case. But has anyone left the workforce to take care of a child? I believe one of the people in here mentioned that happened for them.
Two of them, I think. Yeah.
Two. Yeah, that's right. You want to list your childcare facility? You don't have to. Tell us who it is, yes or no. And then what's the single greatest need? And then what's your second need? If you had 2, they can of course say 3, 4, or 5. But this is some text input. And then this is where it's important about, do you see it having a positive, negative, or no effect on the economy and community of Woodstock? Now, Larry put in this word community, and I thought that was really important because I think community and economy are intrinsically linked. And so that's a very key word in there. We're here for everybody. And Woodstock may be this little place, but there's a lot of hearts and good people here, and we got to work on this together as a group. No one person can solve this. And then tell us about the economy in general. If you have any thoughts on that you want to type, yes or no. And then do you want to give us your name or email? You don't have to if you don't want to, and that's it. So I'll share that. But in general, that would be the format that we came up with and had coded, and maybe people like it, maybe they don't, up for suggestions. But I like to sort of say, if they don't want to answer something and questions further along the line aren't relevant, it just automatically skips them. Again, just speaking to the time factor. So that's sort of what Larry and I have been working on. And let's hear some thoughts. We've got Laura, your hand's up. Go for the gold.
Thanks, Todd. I think this is a great start. I think things that I am curious about, especially given that I'm a parent, are we have these facilities already. We have Woodstock Christian, we have Bridgewater, we have Rainbow, and could we find a way to make a survey to to get information from Ruth and Christiana and Erica, and combine that information, because I feel like what maybe parents perceive as their biggest challenge in childcare, providers see something else, and that information is absolutely necessary in this conversation. I think something else that's also missing is the cost. So while we say whether or not the cost is reasonable, but what is reasonable? And I feel like that's a spectrum for our community, and addressing that so that we can make sure we're focusing on sustainable solutions moving forward, because our workforce is very diverse, and making sure that our teachers and providers have a living wage, and so that these are sustainable careers moving forward for those of us that want to stay and grow our families is important. So those are two pieces of feedback I'd just like to add.
That's fantastic. I think there is big picture stuff that we should be aware of, like Let's Grow Kids and all this, that are working on the bigger problems. So, the immediate impact we want to have, just so everyone to keep in mind, is just to get any kids right now that could go somewhere, get them in there, whether it's at Rainbow or the nursery or wherever it can be, or a new place. But just if there's a kid today that can get in childcare tomorrow, those are the goals. So Laura, those are great points, and I completely agree with them. Ruth, I think Julia actually had the hand up first, if you don't mind, Ruth. Julia?
Yeah, hi. So a couple thoughts. Number one, I second everything Laura just said. Very well stated. I think it's great that you guys are doing a survey. However, I think what is of equal and possibly more importance is that your meeting times are friendly for families. The fact is, having a 6 o'clock meeting is just not something that anyone with really tiny kids can realistically do. And people, again, chicken or the egg. We can't get childcare to take care of our children to attend a meeting. And so having a 6 p.m. meeting is just boxing out a huge number of people.
That's why this one's at 8.
Exactly. No, totally. But that doesn't really do a whole lot about the general EDC meetings. I, for one, will never be able to attend a general EDC meeting.
The general meetings of this group?
No, of the EDC.
Well, that's this. We don't speak for the meeting times for the EDC, but you should speak to them about that. I'm on there, but this is we can control this group, and we made this 8 o'clock, and I think it's great. We're not the EDC. We're just a committee.
I understand that. I was on many committees when I was on the EDC too. So, and to that point, I think your point about childcare being linked to economic development is one that we debated in depth when we granted a grant to Woodstock Christian Childcare. I think 3.5, Larry or Mika can probably speak to it because they were both serving. I'm not sure if Larry was there at that point, but Mika definitely was. So we've had this conversation before, and the EDC does not need to be further convinced that that childcare is linked to economic development. I understand that perhaps the basic premises do need to be reinforced, but I don't think anyone needs to have that conversation again. To that end, one thing that we had basically concluded when I was on the board was that it was far more effective to use EDC funds to and energies, frankly, because you're all volunteers. You're giving your time to this endeavor, and everyone's time is limited. And at least I certainly wasn't an expert on all the things that I was opining and voting on spending funds on. So it was far more useful to be spending money on endeavors that were being spearheaded by experts in the field, projects that had ideas, places that had been found that just needed money to get off the ground, right? So
we lost you. You got muted there. You're muted.
Julia, you're muted.
You got muted.
Sorry.
We lost you off the ground. We got you right there.
Yeah. So the point is that it's a lot more useful to, as Caroline's saying, if Caroline has a director and just needs a space, then they can go look for a space and come to the EDC for funding. The point is that to be friendly, to make it clear to the community at large that you are looking for projects like that to fund, to grant more, to get more childcare into the community, I would think would be the fastest way to make an impact directly, that would directly benefit
Yeah.
families who are going to be paying taxes and really necessary to the
Yeah.
community. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I think it's important to note that this survey is an attempt to get opinions from the general populace. We also are going to be seeking
With all the providers that we'll talk to.
seeking direction from all the providers. We, as Todd said initially, we know we're just amateurs. We're looking
Exactly.
for each provider to come to us. We're
Yeah.
with a specific proposal backed up by numbers, et cetera. So
yeah, I would
this
just
is
think
only
that getting
part
the
of it.
word out among
Yeah.
providers and among parents of small children who are like, I think everyone on this call has had countless conversations with childcare providers locally. So if you're spreading the word that you are looking for projects to fund, I would think that would be an effective, I mean, and please, everyone, other parents on this call, correct me if you think I'm totally wrong or out of left field or something, but like, I would think that would be a much faster route to efficacy than almost anything else.
Julia, that's a great point.
sorry.
And we couldn't agree more. I can say for this whole group, the reason we're here spending our time is because we had a giant grant process. We reached out to the community, the Vermont Standard, numerous other places. We reached out to every childcare provider, and only one of them came with a grant proposal. And we even talked to Rainbow about this, and they had some turnover, and we think the emails got lost. But as private volunteer citizens, we spent dozens of hours trying to reach out to the 4 providers so that they can send us any grant last year for the annual grant process. So we really hope that making this group will continue to make the voice louder, as you're saying, because we couldn't agree more. All we want to happen is someone to submit a grant that can be reviewed and have nice, factual, good information and say, here's what we think we can do with it and how, so we can sit there and vote on it and hopefully give it a yes and get more children in these centers. It was really disappointing to not have anybody get back to us before. And again, that's why we decided to make this committee and get the voice out there as much as we could. And the Vermont Standard will do an article specifically on this committee once we have some more members and a larger voice, because it was just Mika, me, and Larry. It wouldn't be very interesting, but we'll use that as well. Yeah, if someone called us today and said, hey, we have a proposal to get 10 more kids in school, we would do everything we could to try to help them with that proposal. There's a grant manager now in town. So I think that's exactly what we want to happen. And we just can't make people do that. Mika?
Yeah, I think to be clear, right now we're just in a serious fact-finding mission, right? It's just I have gone to Ruth. I had a long, extensive conversation. She was kind enough to grace me with, I think, more than a couple hours of her time to explain childcare at Woodstock Christian. I've had some great conversations with Wendy about the one over there by the pool. I can't remember the name, sorry.
Woodstock Nursery.
That's it, thank you. I haven't been able to speak with Rainbow yet directly, other than just emails, but I think right now it's just, that's the process that we're in, is fact finding. What is the need? What are the challenges? Is this something that we can throw money at, for lack of a better word, or not? Maybe it isn't. I mean, I love the idea of the new center, Caroline, pardon me, that you were talking about. It's so awesome. I think my first question is there staffing for it? So it's just, I think, yeah, we're fact finding right now, and hopefully the fact finding will lead to extra spaces, whether that's for 1 kid or 50 kids. All of it would be great.
Ruth, you've had your hand up for a while. I apologize. Go ahead.
That's
Ruth.
okay.
Sorry about that.
So I have so many thoughts about many of the things that everyone's discussed. One of the first things is talking about what you're proposing and trying to think about how you would accommodate new centers or new programs. And I've shared with everyone that I've talked to, and Mika in particular, that the challenges right now are around staffing. And that is not a situation that is unique to Woodstock or the surrounding towns. I'm on the Vital Communities work group for staffing and retention, for recruitment, for advocacy, because this is a huge problem. And I have an entire plan for how to increase capacity in space. I have space, it would need some building, but we don't have teachers. That is the biggest challenge that we have right now, and why most centers don't feel comfortable expanding, because we're struggling just to staff what we have. And that is not an issue that is going to be solved very quickly, because that is a statewide and frankly a nationwide issue. It is a challenge to find people, and there are pipeline ideas for how to get new younger people involved in wanting to do early care and education. But frankly, until the state has public investment to bring wages and compensation benefits, all of that on par with what our local school teachers are making in public school programs, it is going to be hard to do that. It is difficult to encourage people to go to school, pursue college education, and then tell them you're probably going to start making anywhere from $13 to $14 an hour if you're lucky. That is a really tough sell. And so I completely understand the desire to want to have more programs. And the other side of that, like you mentioned, Todd, there's a lot of regulations that you have to follow depending on the type of program you are, the size, regarding your space, regarding your staff qualifications. There's just a lot to it. And so new programs starting up, it takes a lot of time and development. Bridgewater had been in development for several years. Even after they had their facility up and ready to go, they still don't have enough teachers to staff what they had envisioned. So I just want to add a word of caution that while we all want the same things, how we get there and what's necessary to actually create it and sustain it have to be considered in that equation. So I've talked a lot with Mika about the challenges that we face just in providing the care that we do and the education that we do. And I know that I think it was Julia maybe who mentioned the grant that Woodstock Christian had years, like in a year or so before I started as director. And that was to create more infant and toddler slots. And so the plan for that, though, was based on the fact that everyone believed that when public pre-K became a bigger program, there wouldn't be a need for pre-K in private centers anymore. And so we were going to take that space and create another infant room. That never materialized because when I got there, instead of public pre-K, meaning that there were less children who needed spaces, I went from we had maybe 4 or 5 kids in pre-K, and then I had 10. And so every year that is the case. I start out with a couple of spaces in pre-K, but every time a new family moves in during the year, there's nowhere for them to go. So they can't go to public pre-K, so they come to our programs. So I would say that there's a great need on all ages. My 2-year-old room is probably the one where I have the most desire. I have calls all the time now. People call about infant spaces, but they know if they're on our list, they've been on our list for a while, and that's probably going to continue. Some of those children who go on our infant list, I'm not able to place until they turn 2. So it is a difficult situation. I would also say that talking about your survey, another aspect that I would hope that you could ask about in 2 different ways is, one, when you're talking about affordability, it might be nice to ask families whether or not they have applied for childcare subsidy and whether or not they know that the program has been seriously expanded to serve more families. And it's kind of a stopgap between now and what is hoped for at the state level in the next year or 2. That would be one comment on that. And the other thing for the survey, I think you should ask a question about how many families are looking for after school care, because I just learned that there isn't going to be after school care at the elementary school. And not this year anyway. And so
That's not, that, I didn't hear that. They would just, it was starting in 2 weeks.
I don't know, because what I've been told is we have families who are transitioning to that program, and I've spoken to Shelley. And so I think there's some concern over when that might start.
Yeah, there is. It's finding the staff, which same thing last year. Then they started about 2 weeks late.
So that problem is the same problem that we're sharing across all programs. It's the staffing piece that really is critical. So I wanted to offer just a couple of ideas for people to consider. One of the struggles that providers are having in the area revolves around not having disruptions when staff are out for illness and other things, vacations, whatever it might be. And the idea of the community coming together to kind of create some sort of vetted substitute pool of whether it be paid for by the town or whether it be people who have volunteer time to give. But that is a huge problem for, I know, our families when we have to close because we don't either a classroom or the whole center because I don't have enough staff. It's really hard on families. So that was one thing that it won't solve the problem of extra capacity, but it would help provide a little less disruption to the families who do have care. So those were a couple of things that I just wanted you to think about. And I would love to know what the plans are for after school, because our families are really concerned about what they're going to do after in those hours.
Thanks, Ruth. I think that's really good stuff. I wonder if I'm a huge proponent of wage growth, and I'm disgusted by the wage level specifically in this area and in Vermont in general, personally. So that's my thought on that. I'm 100% with that. I wonder if we shouldn't find a way to cast a net to people who are qualified providers or perhaps nearly qualified or can renew and find out what it might take for them, if anything, to get them back in the workforce. I can't say because it wasn't supposed to be, but ended up being public anyway, that when the school district had problems filling 4 slots, a 10% raise in that slot category filled those 4 positions from people coming from other towns. So I think, how can we find out what people might be interested getting paid if they would come and move here or come out of not being in the labor force to rejoin the labor force? Does anyone have any ideas on that? It would be great to know.
I do.
Ruth, what do you got? And then we're going to go to
So,
Caroline. I'm sorry,
I
Caroline.
have two things. I have 2 things that relate to what you just brought up. One is, yes, wages are difficult, and I have worked for the past 4 years to increase our wages of our teachers. Any type of incentivification of teacher salaries brings with it both positive and negative. One is we can't increase wages for people to come in and fill the need we have and not do something with the teachers who have been there for years at very low wages. It just won't work.
Just to interject, Ruth, I wasn't implying that
I know, but
every administrative position, the entire district got a 10% raise this year.
Right. So, and that's what I'm saying is it's the other piece is when we do put things in place that would be across the board, it's how long can that be sustained? Because at some point, if there isn't outside support for that, when that support goes away, centers cannot afford that, because all of our operating budget, for the most part, other than certain centers who have other lines of income, most of us are dependent on tuition. So that burden then falls to families, and we really try hard not to have that happen. So that was one thing. The other piece is, if we're looking at how we bring people into the area to work in these types of jobs, the biggest struggle is housing. So these 2 things are completely linked. we can't bring teachers in because they can't afford to live anywhere nearby where they're not driving 45 minutes to an hour. And then we have teachers, I personally have a teacher who's struggling just to be able to find any type of housing to stay so she can continue to work in our program, which would seriously impact us if we lost her. So I think that any solution that you look at for how to help the workforce improve, you have to also look at where are they going to live.
Ruth, that's another great point. I'm going to let Caroline go, but I'm just going to say one quick thing. This is the problem. The problem is, and I think this goes back to what someone said earlier about, I don't know what else we could do to advertise these things. We're very bad at it. But if all of us here, the 16 people, can tell 10 people to tell 10 people, if someone is a teacher and they need a house, they should get in touch with the EDC. I have an apartment I'm holding for a teacher right now. No one's living in it. I'm making $0, and I haven't had anyone call me yet.
Well,
So
I did. I did email Mika and ask, would the EDC do anything to help keep a teacher in this area?
that might have just happened what Mika just texted me about this morning. So
Okay.
I think thinking about as a group, how to communicate to people, and hey, if you are interested in working in this area, what are your problems? And then see if we have a way to get together as a community and try to figure out how to solve them. Because it could be someone that doesn't have a house in the market, that the housing group on the EDC or anybody, somebody says, oh, I have, you know what, I would do that. When it comes to other things like wage increase, there are some families like my own, when we were at school in LA, we paid, probably 5 times the tuition as a gift because we wanted to do that. There are people who might want to do that. How do we let people know what options are available? I think that's something we need to think about collectively, but really this housing and wage increase, not to be like, there's gotta be a way where people can know, hey, send something here and we're gonna try to help you. That mechanism, we have to do a better job at it, and any ideas are welcome. But Caroline, please go. And I'm sorry I kept you on raising your digital hand for so long.
That's all good. So I've spoken to Brenda from Let's Grow Kids. And one of the issues with the wage raise is that the subsidy will only cover a certain amount for people who need subsidy. So because the childcare centers in Vermont across the board charge so little for childcare, that's the amount, they basically cover the average. So if somebody needs subsidy, they'll cover $65 or whatever. And that's what a lot of people charge because they're like, everybody else is charging $65. That's what I need to charge. I crunch numbers on a childcare center to pay somebody $20 an hour, which I think is a good wage for somebody, at least $20 an hour. You have to charge significantly more than $65 a day. It just financially, you'll be losing money. Otherwise,
Or
it doesn't work.
fundraise or some other way to make it up. It's a lot.
Exactly. Yeah. So like you said, maybe there are parents that are willing to pay more. Maybe the program has a grant program. They get funding from parents, from people in the community who have this fund that they can make up that difference in what subsidy will cover for parents that can't afford it. And then that helps the whole issue in Vermont of childcare, because that's going to raise the subsidy levels over the years. So yeah, that is a big issue. So that's one of the things that if we are to open a center, which our childcare provider is really interested in, then we are planning on making rates a lot higher than what Rainbow is and what other local centers are, to try to raise that bar and to make sure that the wages do go up, because it's super important. We found an interesting property that might work, but it's Act 250. So it might open a can of worms, but we were planning on doing a childcare facility down below and have at least 3 apartments up above that would be rented to teachers. So it's right in town. It's right next to the why am I blanking? It's right behind the liquor store. That property's been for sale for a while.
Yeah.
So went through the whole process with BCLF. They're interested in our project. It's a lot of money though, so it's a lot to put up front. But if there's a community behind us or a way to get support to do the project, then I'm happy to put work into it and have other people put work into it with me. So it's not just on my plate and on our childcare provider's plate.
Good. I think that Laura brings up something in the chat about a sliding scale. And these are things that I've been really thinking about as well. And it's you know, there's fairness and equity and equality, that these things have to be done with a very well thought out, like we said earlier. It has to be well thought out how you might approach something like that. But the problem I have in Woodstock, coming from New York and LA, is that I am offended when there's not more fundraising, when there's not more people reaching out to the community to say, hey, do you want to pay for this? And maybe it's Bill and Susan from Boston who don't come much, but they're like, I have $1 million, I'm going to give it to you because this happens. So I wonder if there's not a way to think about the idea of a community pool, which you were mentioning, for the vetted substitute pool, Ruth. I wonder if there's not a way to have a community pool for funds, if we can do a long-term grant proposal, which I want to bring up that as well quickly. The EDC is looking at longer-term proposals. So if we did go and submit a grant, I would really want it to be something that's big and long-term, so that, you know, year 3, if it's not looking good for renewal, you have some time to go and deal with it. But we're not looking and doing these short-term small things anymore. The EDC wants to do big long-term things now. So my hope is that we can put together a proposal, or a provider can put together a proposal for many hundreds of thousands of dollars to give many years of the things that they need to be successful if we're going to get more children in the centers. We have, who's next? Mika?
Yeah, just for clarity's sake, regarding the new center, the space behind the liquor store, are we talking land or an existing building? Just again, for clarity.
So there's land behind there. It's already flattened and it has like a well built out. So it'd have to be new infrastructure built back there.
Okay.
But it's
So-
like, it's a good spot for it. The Act 250, I didn't expect it to have the Act 250 for that property. And basically the other businesses that are there could open up a can of worms when you apply for the Act 250, because we don't really know what's going on over at Homes. What's like underground there. So they said you have to be careful to apply for that.
My
That's
family
good to
just
know
put,
about that. Thank you.
my family just put an offer on 33 Central Street, and if we get it, we'll find out if we can get space from the town for the outside space and the parking restrictions, which are very tight. So we will turn 2 floors of that into a daycare center if the state and town will allow it. Just so you know, there's lots of people trying to do this, Carolyn. And the best part is that now there's 2 that I know of in this chat right here, and we need to find out anyone else who's interested, because one little piece of information from one person to the other could really make a deal flip. And then the town, I believe, has the will, and we can really try to make something happen. But then Ruth's going to say, well, who's going to work here? So this is why, again, I'm so happy that there's so many people here and having this conversation. Go ahead, Laura.
Thanks again, Todd. And at the risk of just like belaboring this conversation, I think what would be the most helpful, just as like a result of this meeting, is to just take a look at, I think, what everyone here has said in terms of like the issues, you know, that Ruth has highlighted in terms of like staffing being the #1 issue, wages being the #2 issue, housing being the #3 issue, but also through the lens of short-term and long-term solutions, because I'd really personally love to see the EDC in this next cycle address many of those things if possible. We have amazing childcare infrastructure already existing that needs support. We have new childcare infrastructure that could be developed. And if there is a way to do all of these things, I think the workforce and the economy here would benefit from it. And so I'm not trying to summarize or wrap this up, though I know probably all of us would love to end this meeting. I was thinking like it would be really helpful to kind of frame our next conversation around those things. That would be really helpful for me.
Yeah, I mean, if I could make someone write a grant, I would be very happy. We can't write the grant for our own committee, but the providers hopefully will get wind. Some of them are here, and we can work with anyone and with the grant manager as well. And I suggest that the thoughts are think big, think very, very big. And I do hear, I know it's been an hour-long meeting. I think we should give it just a couple more minutes. If anyone else wants to speak, let us know, or we can wrap it up. There's a lot to digest here, and we'll do the minutes and summary and put the video online as well. And we'll have a nice agenda for the next meeting, and we'll make sure that we do our best to have it at a time that everyone can attend like we did tonight. Anyone else have any thoughts on this? And think big. Anyone have any thoughts on think big? How about Ruth? What you think? Ruth, you got any big thoughts? You going to send a grant over?
Well, like I said, we had a whole plan. We have an architect's drawing. We have all of that in place to even think about. But the realities around the sustainability of it is what holds us all back, I think. I think if you're able to work on the other challenges around pay, around benefits, most centers do not have benefits for their employees, and the housing piece, I think, is really important. So I think those things are big issues that you could come up with some short-term answers to that might help. I do like the idea of looking at short-term and long-term, because there are so many larger term things going on. Even some of the grants that I submit to, and I submit applications to support things that I'm working on. Even some of those are like, well, thank you. We really appreciate it. This is a great idea and a great project and a great application, but we're putting all of our money into things like to support Let's Grow Kids and all of the statewide initiatives.
Yeah.
So therefore they don't have money to give to other things. I would also say that your comment, Todd, about having some sort of community pool where if you wanted to put out to say, hey, would you like to donate to help support whatever's going on in the local childcare community, that would be really great. I think that it is hard for individual centers who have to get approvals from boards, and some board members might agree with fund and others might not. I think that that is a great way of circumventing some of the bureaucracy that centers might run into in trying to fundraise in that way. So I really appreciated that comment.
Okay. All right, Ruth, you got good stuff there. A lot of good information. Anybody else? Anybody else want to chime in, or should we call the ball and wrap it up?
Todd?
Oh, sorry.
Yes, Larry, go ahead.
Oh, okay. No, I would just like to support what Ruth is saying, especially in terms of looking at short term. I think Let's Grow Kids and statewide initiatives are definitely heading in the right direction, but they aren't today and they're not tomorrow. They might be, 2 years to 3 years out. I'm talking basically about public subsidy of childcare. But I don't think, from my perspective, I think we've got a much more urgent, or we have an urgent problem. It is global, it is national, it is statewide, but it's also Woodstock's problem. And I think we're uniquely situated that we might be able to actually call it a Band-Aid, call it a short term, whatever. And it could be a very significant thing for us. And again, we're looking as the Economic Development Commission. I think that I agree that we've gone through this again, but I think the question in the survey is important, because hopefully we will be going back to the EDC and as a subgroup and saying, here's a lot of information that we've gotten from the community. Here's the need. And here is the direct relationship between that need and economic development of Woodstock. And here's a big chunk of change that we want to at least start the process. And going with a community, I really love that idea, because I think it can be a handoff from the EDC. The EDC can, be the motivator, the incubator or whatever, and then hand it off to a nonprofit organization in town. And I think there is significant money that could be gained by people there are a lot of people who are very interested in the survival of Woodstock as a place that is enticing to young people, with young children, with energy, with new ideas, and that sort of thing. And I think there's money to be had in there. So
Yeah,
that's what I
very
would
good,
say.
Larry. Stephanie, and then we'll go to Laura again.
Sorry, I kept on putting my hand up and down because I think Ruth and Laura were saying the same thing I was thinking. I think it's great that we're all in the same boat. We want more childcare for our kids. We want people to stay in the area. How are we going to staff these new centers when our current centers don't have enough staff as is? It doesn't seem like adding more daycares at the moment is going to help if we can't find the people in the area to work and we don't have the funds to give them benefits like healthcare, and if they can't find a place to live. So I feel like those are the important things that we need to figure out first. Like you said, big picture. So I think staffing is a huge part of that to figure out before
Yeah.
all of these other big plans are made. I mean, I think maybe the providers need to be putting in bigger grants and, like you said, thinking big. But I think we really should try and work with what we have now to try and develop what they're already doing, and provide more slots currently.
We would love that. I mean, I think, yeah, that's exactly what I hope comes out of this, that the word is spread and that someone will come up with an idea that says, hey, I have room. Here's what I need. Here's what it costs. Here's what you need to do. Here's where I need help. Any of that conversation is the most welcome thing. And I hope it comes out of this in short order. Thank you.
Let me just interject that very briefly. We had an earlier meeting, a preliminary meeting, and I can't remember all the people on it, but there were at least 2 or 3 people on that meeting who are local, who have places, they live here, who said that if the wage being offered was more sustainable, that they would be very interested in going back into childcare. So
There you
it's
go.
not, you don't have to say, I know housing's a big thing, but you might stir up enough local interest where it isn't a huge problem. I just saying that.
Yeah, and Laura's one was staffing, 2 was wages, 3 was housing. They're all so related, interchangeable. It's really interesting. So, go ahead, Laura, and then we'll call it a ball.
Thanks. And I apologize. I keep coming back, but 2 thoughts, which is, I think that there's a broader conversation and context, which a lot of us are aware of, which is also that, not only is there a childcare issue, but like our schools are also short-staffed. And a lot of us have had the experience this past year where the pre-K program has had to expand rapidly. And so I think I just want to make sure we're framing this, and making sure, Todd, I know you're on the school board, but making sure this is like truly a holistic and sustainable solutions that we can come up with, because this problem will sustain as these kids age, and making sure that we have solutions, especially for folks that have growing families. The second thing is that, I would love for us to loop in, if we can, our state reps. Like Allison Clarkson is on the state workforce development committee. She's also on the economic development committee. These are pertinent conversations that we can certainly take to a higher level to see what kind of response there is, and maybe even what money there is to be had there. That's all. So thank you.
Yeah, I think just to wrap up, final thoughts from me. I think that in terms of the school and the pre-K, the institutional pre-K offerings, we are out of space, physical space. And when it comes to it, the reason you can't go and say build a new building is because the majority of young people, when they move with children, or when the children are at that age or younger, it's less disruptive to them. And the statistics show that you may have 30 children one day and 15 the next, and 40. So there's always a sort of role. So you can't spend a few $1 million in a building that may not have a need for the next 5 years because less people moved here or this or that. So that, because I asked that question, I'm like, why aren't we building a new building? They're like, that's a dumb thing, Todd. Here's why. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But in terms of the local community and taking the district out, finding space is important too. But space to me means not just actual real estate. It means space for people to grow economically and socially in their own setting. So that's for providers themselves as business owners. It's for the people who work there and the parents that are going to be able to go and have extra time because their children are well taken care of. So it's a big problem. I do think that we can go and talk to people on the state level or the national level all day long, but I think the best thing, in my opinion, that I'm going to personally focus on when I'm not in these group meetings is trying to find out if somebody has a great idea and that idea costs X, can the community give them that money, whether it's from tax dollars or personal providing through philanthropy or other such things. So I think we have had a great conversation. I really appreciate everyone's time. And I do want, again, everyone to just think about, reach out to 2, 3, 5 people, let them know about this conversation. Stephanie, tell people they should write grants and let them know that we want to see them. And I will do the same. And we'll set up another meeting in a couple weeks. We'll put this video online, and I'm going to try to put together Nikki will do the minutes, but I'm going to try to put together a broad stroke on the things that everyone said and just some bullet points so that we can reference it. And certainly we're available at any time. I think we can talk about it till we're blue in the face, but we're saying it again: it's staffing, wages, housing, or any combination of this, and they're all a big problem. We need, what Larry said, any sort of Band-Aid. We are in a unique position where the economy of Woodstock is incredibly strong, and there are people, and the people Larry's speaking about, I'm making this up, they don't have kids, they just want to see this community thrive. Their grandparents and people have moved on, they want to see the community thrive. Or there's people like my family who want to see anybody who has to give, they need to know where to give it and how to give it and where it's going to go, so we can focus on that as well. With that, I would say motion to adjourn. And thank you everyone for your fantastic time. And we'll talk to you all soon. Motion, may I get a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Hi.
Thank you everyone so much. I really appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, thanks.